boys, man. They're part of the team. Part of the team, man. Can I tell you, part of the team?
Welcome to Tampa Bay. We fuck 'em up when we raise the flag. Fire the cannons and seize the day. The crew's ready, all hands on deck.
Super tight.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Loose Cannons. I'm your boy Sam. We're hanging out with the one, the only, the ever full of nickname Latte, and of course the Barefoot Stank. And tonight we are joined by an individual who's been covering the Bucs for 27 fucking years. Vice President, publisher, senior Bucs beat writer for PewterReport.com, a Kansas State Wildcat, and more importantly, the defensive coordinator / defensive line coach for the South Pasco Predators.
Retired.
The one, the only, Scott Reynolds. What's up, Scott?
How we doing, guys?
You know, that
How are we
defense
doing?
hasn't been the same since
It hasn't. That's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I think most Bucs fans don't even know that the Bucs have been around 27 years, especially the new one.
Well, they've been around longer, actually. I've only been on.
No, I'm
well,
saying the new ones are like this
Yes.
team. You know, only started once Tom
Yeah.
Brady got here. But
Yeah, I'm entering year 28. I walked in the door in 1995 with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks.
Holy
So,
crap.
yeah, it's.
They're looking
I'm
old.
I'm old. I am old.
they're looking. No, you don't look old. They look old though.
You don't look old.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll take that.
Hair's getting longer, Scott.
Well, is it?
It feels like it. I mean,
Okay.
So, Scott,
That's-
since you've been covering the team so long, right? Like most
Yes.
of the new Bucs fans thought that this was just the way it's going to be. Like, oh, we're just going to the playoffs all the time.
Yeah.
We go to conference championships, we go to Super Bowl.
Spoiled rotten.
They don't know about pain.
Yeah.
Oh, oh.
It's funny because there is such a narrative on social media right now. I see a lot of Buccaneer fans just saying, just rip the Band-Aid off. Just get to the rebuild. You know, we don't need Tom Brady. Just pay the credit card bill and you know, fire Todd Bowles. Let's just tank for Caleb Williams. You know, and I'm just like, no. I'm trying to remember the last drafted quarterback that worked out. Oh, that's right. There hasn't been one. There's not been a drafted quarterback in this franchise's history that has worked out. At least since I've
outside
covered
of
this.
Doug. Outside of Doug.
Hey, me and
okay.
Sam were talking about this. I think Freeman could have been the guy if Shiano didn't fuck him up.
yeah.
No.
If Shiano would have done a little more of what McDaniels did with Tua, little confidence. You don't think so? No.
No.
Scott, give us a
I
good
don't.
Josh Freeman story, Scott.
I
Yeah.
can't.
Oh,
Come on, bro. I know you got some good
No,
ones.
I got
That
some,
means-
but I
I know.
cannot.
hey, that means
I-
it's bad. He's like, I can't.
Yeah.
Nope.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got stories dating back to from now. I didn't go to Kansas State with Josh, but I know people at Kansas State who covered Josh that told me some stories, and I'm just like, holy smokes. No, no, I don't think.
Why didn't you warn?
I
the
don't
people
think
at
Greg
Red Bucks,
Schiano-
Scott. What the fuck?
What's that?
Why didn't you give them warning if you knew what was going on at Kansas State?
He might have. We don't know.
I wanted them to draft a Wildcat, man. That's why.
What?
Yeah.
No, it's funny because this is a true story, and there's been enough time. I took great pleasure in the fact that Mark Dominic, former general manager of the Buccaneers and former roommate of mine too, actually he went to Kansas, so he's a Jayhawk, and his first draft pick as a general manager was drafting a Kansas State Wildcat.
That's awesome.
That was awesome. So the funny thing is, Mark actually calls me up the night before the draft. And I mean, we had already predicted, right? I mean, Raheem Morris was the head coach. He was the defensive coordinator at Kansas State with Josh Freeman during Freeman's freshman season. And you know, Raheem went to my alma mater to be a defensive coordinator, like at the age of 30 or some ridiculous thing like that. And he was really good for a year under Ron Prince. And then the Prince crazy happened. Hey, here's this. So Ron Prince's offensive coordinator was James Franklin, the Penn State head coach. And his defensive coordinator was Raheem Morris. And he got Kansas State. This is the first year after Bill Snyder retired. And Freeman was the quarterback. Jordy Nelson was the wide receiver. And they actually went to the Texas Bowl. It was the first year for the Texas Bowl. And the team they played was Greg Schiano's Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And that was like the year Rutgers went like 10-2 or something. And they waxed Kansas State in the bowl game. And that was like the beginning of the end. But Raheem was like, you know, texting me like, dude, like I'm out here at your alma mater. You got to come out and see me. So I went out there for the K-State Texas game. And I actually have a poster here. Kansas State won 45-42 on November 11th, 2000 and in 6.
Wow.
And that was Freeman's freshman year. And I knew that Raheem loved Josh Freeman. Okay. So when he was the head coach of the Buccaneers, I just knew that they were going to get Josh Freeman as the quarterback. And so we predicted that in Buccaneer Magazine or Pewter Report, whatever it was. The Pewter Report was what it was at the time. And so Dominic calls me the night before the draft. And I was shocked because usually before the draft, you try to talk to any general manager, Rich McKay, Mark Dominic, Bruce Allen, Jason Light. They don't want anything to do with you. Like, they're not going to give you any insight. So Mark calls me up the night before the draft. He's like, hey, you probably know we have an interest in, Josh Freeman. I'm like, duh. Like, are you kidding me? Like, okay. And he's like, no, I read your draft review and he's on the cover. So I just wanted to ask you, you shoot me straight and take the purple glasses off. What do you think of Josh Freeman from what you've seen? And I was brutally honest, because as much as I like Kansas State players becoming Buccaneers, I only want them if they're good. And I said, okay, so here's the thing with Freeman. Rocket arm, did not have a good offensive line. Once Jordy Nelson left, didn't have anybody to throw to. Running game wasn't there. I think Freeman ran for like 500 yards his junior season. And I said, so he's got the strong arm. If you build an offensive line around him, if you give him a running game where everything is not on his shoulders, because I don't think he's built to like be the guy to carry the team. But if you kind of make him the big strong arm point guard, he can be really good. He's got the physical tools,
Brad Culpepper.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And Dante Culpepper. And I said, what concerned me though was in 3 years there. Now he beat Texas a couple seasons back to back, and Texas was like a top 10 team at the time. So those were good quality wins, but the guy was like 0 for 3 against Missouri and KU and Nebraska. Those were like our 3 big rivals.
Oof.
And I just said, I don't know how much he cares. That's the only thing. Cause he's kind of like stoic. He's kind of like, in a daze sometimes. He's almost like robotic. And I said, that's the only thing that concerns me, is just like, you got to like talk to the guy and make sure. And of course they end up drafting him. And I think what I was saying there as a legitimate concern happened. I don't think Josh Freeman cared about football enough. I think it was a meal ticket. It was a profession. It wasn't a passion. It wasn't a love. I think that's why he flamed out. I think Greg Schiano actually told me he spent more time trying to save Josh Freeman's career and get him on track than he said. I spent more time with Josh Freeman than I did any kid at Rutgers during my time there.
Don't believe him.
And
Don't believe him.
I do believe him, because I know some things, and Josh Freeman was
guy. It's a connected guy.
At least now now we know where that dazed, confused thing was coming from that you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's always been there, really. It's always been there.
It's always been there.
Huh.
No, I love Josh. Josh is a nice guy, but it's like, here's another prime example. It's like I take my sons Logan and Caden to the Josh Freeman football camp. You would think, Josh Freeman would be there.
Yeah, I heard about that. Ouch.
Yeah. Vincent Jackson shows up on the second day, because Josh wasn't there on the first day. Vincent Jackson shows up on the second day, like an hour into the camp, just like as a lifeline. And then Josh rolls up literally the last 20 minutes of the camp. Didn't even like throw passes with the kids. He showed up to take pictures and talk to the kids for 10 minutes. And then the 2-day camp was over.
Yeah, I heard the talk wasn't even good. One of my customers from the barbershop went there. And he was like, being a quarterback's kind of like a train conductor, or some stupid analogy like that. And they were like, it was bad. It
was horrific. And he even referenced, he's like, if you're, and I'm paraphrasing, and this was years ago, so forgive me if this is not exactly verbatim, because it's not going to be. He says something to the effect of, hey, if I'm on drugs, I can't play and all this, and everyone was like, huh? What? What?
Where are you going with that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's like trying to like send a message to the kids, but it's like, wow, that hit really close to home, Josh. Okay.
Oddly enough, I had to go back and just kind of glance at the 2009 team he was drafted onto. And you know who's on that roster?
Byron Leftwich.
Yeah,
he was the starting quarterback.
Yep. And it's probably his fault as well that Josh didn't succeed.
Here we go.
So now we're bringing it full circle. Now we're bringing it present day.
Scott, the season's over.
We need to talk about
Go ahead,
the pain and all this bullshit. And last time you were on here, you were predicting possibly, Munkin making a return, and then all of a sudden this week we get some news. Scott, who the hell is Jim Bob Cooter, whatever,
Jim Bob Cooter,
Jim Bob Cooter, and who the
Clint
hell
Kubiak?
Kubiak from the fucking Broncos. Did you watch the Broncos this year? Why would we want anybody from the Broncos?
All right. Well, in all fairness,
but wait, before I have to hijack your question, Latte, because before that, I need to go backwards on the timeline for just a little bit before we get to that, and then Scott can answer. But can you take us through
a little more? Fuck.
Yeah, you're gonna. That's all right. Creating cliffhangers, professional fucking show, Scott. You see that shit? So listen.
See that. The theater of radio.
Let's rewind just a little bit. Can you talk us through how the Byron Leftwich firing actually came to fruition? Like throughout the season, what exactly went down, and then
your Fat Five.
Ultimately,
your Fat Five was.
Hold on, let me pull it up and I'll read it here.
Yeah, like what ultimately,
like a whole 5,000 word column dedicated.
No, the Fab Five. I keep telling these guys it was phenomenal. I read it, Scott. You always read it, but this one was particularly spicy. I was like, wow, like when you here's your run on first down. You happy now? And then oh my God, it was
When I was writing it, I felt like Ralphie from A Christmas Story when he was writing the theme about the Red Ryder carbon action BB gun with the stock or the compass and the stock. It just was flowing,
You were dropping bars.
Yeah, and I mean, there was just a lot of dysfunction, and everyone wants to hate on and beat up Todd Bowles, and they're entitled to their opinion. And as I said on the Pewter Report podcast, I'll say it here. It deserves to be said. One of two things is going to happen. Either Bowles is going to make the right hire with a really good offensive coordinator. And listen, his defense in 10 out of the 17 games, which is more than half, held teams to 21 points or less in 10 of those games. And they were 7-3 in those games, right? And that's enough to win football, man. That's winning football games right there. And and sometimes you're going to need 30 points, right? Sometimes you're going to need like the Ravens game. They were up 10-3 and ended up being 27-22. But God, if the Bucs would have scored 30 points that game, they would have won 30-27, right? I mean, you can't wear the Superman cape every single week on defense. The offense has got to have some of those games.
Not in today's league. Not in today's league.
Well, I'm just saying, I think Bowles' defense is good enough to win with. The offense was the problem. The offense only scored 21 points or more 6 times.
Oh, 6 times. Wow.
Yeah, 21 points. Now, they scored 30 points or more twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in those 10 games, we probably give up less points had we had an offense that, could put some pressure on the opposing team to score points. How many games we sit around and the defense would 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out.
The defense
and then just our defense keeps going out on the field.
Right.
And eventually they're going to give up booty.
Right. Well, it's just like I said, the Baltimore game, the Bucs are up 10-3 at halftime. Right. In the Carolina game, even the 21-3 game, they were up 7. Carolina was up 7-0. That's not an insurmountable lead whatsoever to overcome. But when you only score 3 points that day, then it is. So it started, let me just finish about Todd Bowles. The thing with Todd Bowles is one of two things is going to happen. He's either going to find the right OC, and they're going to win the NFC South again, probably maybe with a 10-7 record, maybe 11 wins, depending on who the OC is, if Tom's back, et cetera, right? That's like the best case scenario, in my opinion. The worst case scenario is he makes the wrong hire. He's just not a good head coach. You see more game management decisions like the Cleveland Browns game, right? That it doesn't go the Bucs' way at all. And then Bowles gets fired after 2 years, because remember, the Glazers give coaches 2 years and then they get a pink slip if you don't do good. See Lovie Smith and Greg Schiano, and Dirk Cutter got 3 and Raheem Morris got 3 because they had a winning season in there. So if you're anti-Bowles, there's a chance that with the wrong OC hire, you're going to end up with a new coach in 2024 and a top 10 draft pick. If Bowles makes the right OC hire, you probably end up with the NFC South title again.
Well, technically, Bowles had a winning season. Oh, no, I mean, not record-wise, but we won the NFC South and went to the playoffs his first
Sure.
season.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of Frosty fans that are upset about the 8-9 record. That's what I'm saying.
I know.
So all I'm saying is this is going to get sorted out in 2024. I'm not campaigning for Bowles. I'm not, being a Bowles cheerleader. But one thing I will say is this: he did see, I think, the train wreck on the offense coming, and from what I know, he told the offensive staff, Byron, especially since he's the coordinator, he's in charge of the offense. Hey, let's think outside the box here, because everybody on that offensive staff has just had the Arians playbook mindset, and the Arians playbook works, man. When you've got 4 weapons, AB, Gronk, Evans, and Godwin, you can't double team everybody. You can double team. You can take 2 of those guys away with a really good secondary. You can't take 4. And with the offensive line that Brady had, remember, they could go 5 wide, right? And, put Fournette out in the slot, move Gronk out in the slot, flex him out, go 5 with an empty backfield, because you had 3 Pro Bowlers. You had Donnie playing better in 2021. He had his best year. Kappa was playing well. He's in a contract year. And so when the offense lost those pieces, Marpet retires, Jensen's out on day 2 of camp, AB is gone, Gronk is gone, the directive that Todd Bowles said was, look outside the Arian system, watch some college film, look around the NFL, incorporate some misdirection, use some play action, find other things that we can incorporate into this offense. And I think that was Todd's way of saying, this is an old offense. This is an old playbook. And, if you're not evolving and changing in the NFL, you're going to get passed by. And I think that Byron just assumed, hey, with this playbook, man, it's automatic 30 points per game. And even Bruce has said that. And I love Bruce to death, and it's his offense, and of course that's his baby. But I'm just telling you, it wasn't 30 points per game. It was 18 points per game. That's a big difference. Mm-hmm. So the other thing was, the reason why Tom Brady really liked playing for Todd Bowles last year is because Bowles really wanted to run the ball. If you go back and look at Brady's Super Bowl seasons in New England, about half of those, the Patriots had a top 10 running game. And if you go back and look at some of Brady's statistics, they're honestly somewhat pedestrian. He made the Pro Bowl because in some years he threw like 5 or 6 interceptions and 28 touchdowns, but he didn't have these 40 touchdown seasons. He had one season where he threw 50, and a lot of them were, 28, 26, 30, touchdown seasons. It wasn't like this prolific passing game in New England. But Brady did not want to lead the league in pass attempts and completions again at age 45. But he did. He wanted balance. He wanted to be able to run the ball. And I think even Rick Stroud later in the season, probably in November, talked to Harold Goodwin. And Goodwin just about threw Byron Leftwich under the bus. We have some of these duo runs in the playbook and in the game plan, and Byron doesn't get to him. And there were some within
play caller. I was like, yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah. There were some within the organization that told me that Bowles at one point, I didn't hear this from Todd, so this is not from Bowles, but some other people have said that Bowles pretty much early in the season, I think it was after the Chiefs game, remember they ran 6 times for 3 yards. He said, we need to run the ball at least 20 times a game. Okay. And he wasn't saying, this is the box to check, but like, hey, if we're going to throw it 40, let's run it 20. Let's have some balance. And it doesn't mean run for 200 yards and pass for 200 yards. It means run for 100 yards, 120 yards, and then pass for 300 or maybe pass for 280, right? It's still a pass-first league. Bowles knows that. But a big difference between running the ball for 120 yards a game and running it for 70 yards a game, or in some cases less than 50 yards per game. And so there were people that tell me that a lot of those first down runs was Byron's way of checking the box. Well, just ran the ball. Can't get mad at me. Ran the ball here, ran the ball there. So and I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not charging Byron with that. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm just saying that is what I've heard from some people that were in the room that they think that was the reason for a lot of the first down runs. And you go back and look at the statistics. I want to say is less than half of the games the Bucs ran the ball 20 times or more, even though that I'm going to call it a directive. It might not have been a directive. It might have been a strong suggestion, but is it insubordination or is it just incompetence? I don't know. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's one or the other, but either one, it's damning and it cost Leftwich's job.
Scott, two things. One, we weren't very good at running the ball. Obviously, play calling has a part in that, but you guys getting guys whipped up front.
Right.
You know, a lot of tackles for loss. So that's a problem. Second of all, there's another variable in the room, right? And that's Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anybody says. You can't tell me that Tom sat back quietly and let Byron make all these choices or let Bowles, you know, make these demands and wasn't a part of what we saw out there on Sundays in regards to game plan.
Yeah.
Like, I can't see that guy sitting there week after week as obsessed as he is, sitting up 3 a.m, watching film saying, you know what, we're going to keep on doing the same fucking thing over and over and over again. And that's what we saw. So, like, where's the culpability for that guy?
There is some. I don't know to what degree. I mean, I'm not going to deny anything you said or argue against it. You're right. I just don't know to what degree.
Right.
Like, for example, you know, like, I'm sure I could go through every game and I could find, you know, somewhere between 10 to 8 to 10 runs that worked for 6 yards here or there, or 8 or 12 or 20, whatever. And a lot of the runs that were called were in very predictable run sets. Like, for example, when O'Keefe is in the game, that's pretty much a tell it's going to be a run, right? Yeah. And it's some of that really obvious predictability that I think drove some people crazy at One Buc Place. For example, I know that the Steelers game was a very big game of consternation because
the game was so frustrating.
They had one game wrecker, and that was Hayward up front. And you go back and look at that game, and there's a 3rd and 1 where Robert Hainsey doubles with Shaq Mason and leaves Gedeke one-on-one with Hayward, and they run the ball right behind Gedeke. It's like you're running the ball to the left. Donovan Smith is not a good run blocker. At least he wasn't last year. And Gedeke's really struggling. Oh, and by the way, the game wrecker's on that side of the ball. You got all-pro Tristan Wirfs on the right side, and you got Shaq Mason, who's a better run blocker than he is a pass protector, right next to him. If you're going to run the ball, why don't you run it to that side? I mean, those are some of the maddening things that should be obvious. And again, I'm not trying to attack Byron Leftwich's, you know, character or person or whatever, but I mean, you guys heard the press conferences, you know, and when we're talking about analytics, and I'm not the biggest analytics guy. I think it's got its place in the game, but when you're talking about, you're asking him some questions about analytics or, you know, play action passing, and he's talking about, that's fantasy football stuff. It's like, no, it's not. It's not fantasy football stuff. It's just not. You sound like an idiot. And I'm not saying that you are, but you sound like that in your press conferences. And there are people at One Buccaneer Place, and I'm not naming names, that would listen to those press conferences and cringe at the level of, does this guy understand what he's even saying? I'm just saying, man, it's like, I didn't go out on a limb saying he should be fired. I mean, that was probably one of the easiest calls ever. I've called for 3 people in my 27 years to be fired.
Lovey was early.
Lovey was early. That was a third of the way through his second season. That was the collapse at the Capitol. That was one.
You like that? That was that?
Yeah, that's right. That was the Kirk Cousins.
At the Capitol. I like the name of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first one. Jay Hayes, the defensive line coach, when the Bucs, I think, had like 22 sacks total, 23 sacks in Dirk's second year. I want to say it was second year, and then and then Byron. Those are the only 3 coaches I've ever called for to be fired publicly.
It's just crazy that, like Stank said, though, like, we watch these games and I'm gonna get to Pelagic and Peter's super chat here in 1 second. But you watch these games and there's like no coherent game plan. It seems like on offense.
Nope.
Like you watch
Nope.
the Niners play.
Yeah.
You're like they're doing this, they're attacking that. You watch every Bucs game. There wasn't a single game where there's absolutely no like what the fuck is the purpose of what they're doing today?
Right.
Are they attacking this or that? So with all that being said, how is a guy as obsessed as Tom sitting back and not saying, hey, what the fuck are we doing? Why do you want us to do this? This has not worked. Or why are we doing this? Because he's ultra obsessed. I would say he might be more obsessed than an offensive coordinator at this point.
He's obsessed when it comes to preparation. I can tell you from talking to multiple people, and this is not coming from Tom's mouth. I don't have a relationship with Tom, but people that I've talked to that are with Tom on a regular basis say Tom is not a take charge, field general, Peyton Manning kind of guy. He does not want to call the plays. He does not want that responsibility. He doesn't want to sit there and pre-snap, look at down and distance and look at the personnel on the field and say, we're going to run this play. He doesn't want that responsibility.
But
where he feels like he's, well, and to your point, when they execute these plays during the week, Tom does sign off on the plays. Okay. Like, for example, he will sign off on a wide receiver screen. I don't know that he wants to see it 5 or 6 times in a game. Okay.
Nobody does.
Nobody does,
Scott.
right.
I don't ever want to see that fucking play again.
Except the defense. But my point is more like he came from a coaching staff in New England where every game plan was so clear, like it was catered to the opponent, no matter what they did well.
We also heard that there was frustration on Tom's side with the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, with the disjointed stuff, with the preparation. We heard that
during the game planning phase of the week. That's like
it is what it is, Sammer. It is what it is, Sammer. He's told us what he can tell us.
Well, I'll just say this too. Keep in mind, I think Tom, like Todd Bowles to a degree, and I think Todd was probably ahead of Tom in the got a bad feeling about this. But Tom's first 2 years, right? 40 touchdowns, 43 touchdowns, 30 points a game, right? And so it's like the first couple of weeks, you're like, okay, well, we got some new people here. Kokeef is new, and Kate Otten's new, and Luke Gedecke's new, and Robert Hainsey's new. Julio's new, Russell Gage is new. Okay, so it's just going to take a little bit of time, right? And then week 4, boom, 31 points. Mike has 2 touchdowns, right? They lost to Kansas City 41-31, but you're like, okay, well, maybe we're back. Nope. They kept waiting and waiting for it to happen, and it just didn't, because it couldn't, because there wasn't enough talent on the offense. And then it's like, once you're mired in it, and we've heard head coaches say this before. Dirk Cutter was famous for saying it. Todd Bowles even said it this year. There's no cavalry coming. There's nobody coming to save the day. The roster is set. The coaching staff is set. You got to figure it out. You got to make it work. Otherwise, it's not going to.
Yeah. Tom said it on his podcast, said as much on Monday. I don't know if you heard it or not, Scott. And we heard the quote, right? If I knew what I was going to do, I'd fucking nope, I'd tell you by now. Right. But he said, thank you, Tom. To your point, he said something similar where like the decompression of the season and having, it's a crash landing, and when you're in it, you are in it, and it's week, and it's like, okay, that game's over. Don't fucking care. On to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And it's just, you're so routine.
Yeah. And I've heard from players, and I even in our preparation, right? It's like, you're at the game on Sunday, Monday's kind of the post-mortem, who's injured, you're writing about the reaction to the game, et cetera. Tuesday's kind of the same thing. Oh shoot, the player's on injured reserve now. They just signed somebody to the practice squad, whatever. Wednesday, open locker room. You're halfway there, right? It's the first day of preparation. It just, the week flies by during football season. I've heard for the players, it's just a meteoric event. It just flies by. Like, by the time Saturday comes around, they're just recovering from the car crash from last Sunday. Their body's just starting to feel good on Saturday, and now they're going to get in the car and do another 3-hour car crash on Sunday again. And it just, I think that's part of it. Poppy, I think you're right. It's just, you're locked in, and it just, that game's over, on to the next one. That game's over, on to the next one. And then it ends.
You don't have time to look back.
Yeah.
Sammer's going to read 2 super chats really quick. But
Sure.
In that podcast as well, and I shared this with Stank, he also said something good. Right now, all we have to do is tea leaves. That's all we can do, right, Scott? Is just read the tea leaves, little nugget, anything. He specifically spoke about the team, and the way he answered the question made me go, like, the Bucs had a really bad week.
Yeah.
Not us.
Right.
The Bucs. And I couldn't help but go, the Bucs? So wait, you're not part of the Bucs? I mean, you're technically not part of the Bucs, Tom, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, all we have to do is grasp on the straws, right? This is what you do for a living as well. You pick up little things, right?
Right.
I found it interesting because Tom is very thoughtful with you've seen his press conference with everything out of his mouth.
Yeah.
When he said the Bucs.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know Tom. It's funny because actually I literally walked out of the stadium with him and shook his hand for the first time. And, because he was very pleasant to the media. And I thanked him. I'm like, hey, I appreciate the kind words, man. He's like, yeah, thanks for all you guys do. He looked at my Pewter Report shirt. He's like, appreciate what you guys do. And I said, thanks. And then we're just kind of walking out. And I said, oh, man, that game. He's like, yeah, man. And I said, just my 2 cents. I said, I don't think you're done. I said, I think you can come back here and do this again. And he kind of like smiled. He's like, really? He's like, okay. And I didn't get anything out of it. I'm not making any type of
breaking news. Holy shit.
Yeah. No.
That's breaking news.
No, it was as neutral as it could be. A neutral reaction from Tom Brady.
News.
What if it's your words, Scott?
But
at the end of the day, he's just sweating it out. He's like, should I come?
But here's the thing.
He's like, remember that guy Scott Reynolds? He said I could do it.
No, he's like sitting in his
I
hammock.
can do it here.
He's sitting in a hammock, drinking a fucking,
Jason, I was gonna retire, but damn it, Scott Reynolds talked me into coming back one more year.
It's just like,
have you watched that hand?
Imagining you, and then all of a sudden he hears you. Hey, you know what? I think you could do it one more time. Hey.
Yeah.
And then it tips the fucking scales. Tom comes back, rejuvenated, doesn't need a wife, doesn't give a fuck about marriage, ready to fucking roll. I love it.
Just give Pewter Report a shout out on Instagram.
Yeah, for real.
We'll just have you replace that fucking dipshit, that pimp squeak fucking what's his name? Jim Gray on the podcast. Yeah, just be Scott and Tom. Be perfect.
I would ask some questions, man. I would ask some questions.
No,
but I will say this. I'm pretty sure that at times this week, Tom Brady has probably thought, I'm going to retire. I'm not coming back to Tampa. I might come back to Tampa. I might play again. I might play elsewhere. I'm sure all those thoughts have come through his mind. It's only natural. And I think what he's trying to do is just figure out which of those voices is the loudest and the most, constant, and then go with that one. And I think right now he's probably envisioning different scenarios. Okay, well, what if I did Fox? What if I went there? And what if I did hang it up, right? You have to think about those things. What if I left Tampa? Where would I go? What would that look like, right? What if I came back? Who's the OC, right? What's the salary cap situation gonna be like? It's normal and natural to think about all the different scenarios. So I believe Tom Brady when he says he doesn't know, because I don't think he knows yet.
No. Pelagic Computer sent us 2 awesome super chats, $10 each. The most recent one says Byron's presser showed that he was disconnected from reality. He literally stated that play action doesn't work if you aren't running well. There are years of data that dispute that. 100% agree there.
Yep.
And then the other one says, speaking of Fab Fives, wasn't Scott on the fire Todd train for 2 to 4 weeks? If that was the case, what changed your mind, Scott? Just curious if there were things that you became privy to.
Yeah, it was not on the fire Todd train. We did have a couple of Bucs Monday mailbags where the question was, is Todd on the hot seat? And that would be the headline, right? I mean, we're trying to grab people's attention to read the stuff. That's a legitimate question that was in the actual mailbag. It was, is Bowles going to get fired? Is Bowles on the hot seat? So I'm a firm believer that I do believe coaches should have 2 years, just like general managers. Give them a couple years to right the ship, to make some moves. And from the beginning, I was kind of aware of the fact that Todd Bowles inherited the staff. This is Bruce Arians' staff, and every single coach, from Nathaniel Hackett, who didn't even make it through the first season, right, to Doug Peterson, who took the Jaguars to the playoffs and won the division his first year. every one of those new coaching hires last year got to hire their own staff. Todd Bowles didn't. And so, we naturally assume, well, they've been coaching together, they all know each other and they're all on the same page and the same team, and it's a brotherhood. Not necessarily, right? I mean, not necessarily. And they were Bruce's hires. They were Bruce's guys. And some of those guys ended up sticking around from Bruce's staff that Todd saw fit to keep, and some of them did not. And I think too that for people that have wondered, well, why didn't Byron get fired during the season? Well, because who was he going to replace him with? Obviously, he was going to fire Clyde Christensen. Clyde retired and beat him to the punch, so it wasn't going to be him. Harold Goodwin's a run game coordinator, and the running game is like the worst thing in Tampa right now. So I don't know that the fans would eat that up. Like, oh, you're firing Byron and you're replacing him with a run game coordinator. So Harold Goodwin was not an option. Kevin Garver, the wide receivers coach, got fired, so he wasn't an option. So, I'm okay with Bowles making these moves, and they needed to be made. And let's see who he picks, and choose wisely. And if it works out, then you probably win the South again. And if not, then there might be a new head coach in 2024.
And
How did the special teams
that lets
coach?
us fast forward to Latte's question that we hijacked. Sorry, Stank.
Well, hold on, Scott, because Stank was saying this earlier, and then we're going to jump into the question that I had earlier.
I want to make sure your question gets answered, Latte. It's
Yeah.
I'm going to get there.
It's important
But
to me, man.
Stank said this earlier, and I'm making this more of a statement instead of a question. But
Okay.
if Tom doesn't want to come back here and he wants to move across the fucking country away from his kids to Vegas and start over with a new offense and do all that, like Stank said, basically, you know what? So be it, bro. Good luck to you.
Right.
I'm not gonna be fucking mad. That doesn't fucking make sense to me. It's stupid. Instead of
I agree.
You know where you're at. But if that's what you want to do, bro, God bless you. The super chat ties into the question that I started off with, Jim Bob fucking Cooter and all these weird shit. I don't know what's going on. Scott, you had me excited about Todd Monken. I don't know what's going on with these interviews.
Yeah.
And super chat's $5 from Bucs Basement says, did you check out the report from NFL Network that Bowles is interviewing all candidates and is asking the OCs how they would build an offense around Brady?
Yeah, that's a legitimate question. I'm sure before Tom says no to the Buccaneers, he wants to know who the hire is. I can only imagine what the conversations are like, where like you've got Jason Light and Todd Bowles, like in the office, and they're trying to line up offensive coordinator interviews. Yeah, we'd like to have you come in and talk about the vacant offensive coordinator job. Is Brady going to be here? Hang on one second. Hey Tom, we've got so and so on the line. Would you consider playing for him? Maybe. Okay, hang on. You might have Tom. Yeah, we would talk to Tom about you, and
How would you build the offense?
He kind of likes you, and maybe, but how would you build the offense? This is what he says. I mean, it's almost kind of like junior high, right? Where it's like, I think so and so likes you.
Let me click over. Let me click over.
Right.
Click over.
Exactly.
Let me ask it for you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of sophomoric in that sense, but it's a juggling act. It really is. And so the guy today, Clint Kubiak, this is Gary Kubiak's son. Mm-hmm. Gary Kubiak was the offensive coordinator under Mike Shanahan. So when we say Kubiak, think Shanahan, because those offenses are pretty much one and the same. We see what Kyle Shanahan's doing with this offense in San Francisco. And then you've got the Mike McDaniels element of it that he took to the Dolphins, right? It's the same kind of thing. It does have a lot of play action in it, which is good. It does emphasize a strong running game, which is a lot of outside zone. It does emphasize some misdirection. Now, there's also some waggles and some bootleg elements of it where you kind of think, with Tom Brady, that's not exactly the best fit. But you can probably modify some of those things. So with Clint Kubiak, he was the offensive coordinator in Minnesota in 2021, and then he got fired with that coaching staff when they made the change there. But Kirk Cousins was a Pro Bowler, Justin Jefferson was a Pro Bowler, Dalvin Cook was a Pro Bowler in that offense. I think they averaged 25 points per game, which was 10th, I believe, in the league that year. And the offense averaged gosh, I want to say 360 yards per game. So, I mean, Minnesota had a pretty prolific offense. It wasn't the offense that was the problem in Minnesota. And that was his 1 year as an offensive coordinator. So to your point, Poppy, when he goes to Denver, he's not even running his offense. He's running Nathaniel Hackett's offense.
Okay.
And he was the play caller there working with Russell Wilson, who looked like a fish out of water in Denver.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like you're trying to make, chicken salad and you don't have chicken salad, you have chicken shit to work with. And I think that is what I've heard today from a source that
Chicken shit does describe our offense pretty fucking close.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. But
it describes Russell Wilson too. Yes, Russell Wilson was.
Yeah. So I'm not going to hold that against Clint Kubiak because that was not his offense. He was not running his offense. He was running what he was told to run. And sometimes that doesn't really work out. When you hire somebody as an offensive or defensive coordinator and, like you were saying, run these plays, and it's not your conception, right? Or it's not your brainchild. And then I think what happens is then I think you start picking plays. And I think that's what Byron Leftwich did. When stuff wasn't working, he'd just look at the play sheet and say, let's try this one, because so many of those plays just there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And you would see the commentators say, it's 3rd and 12, and all of these routes are shallow curls that only go 8 or 9 yards. You're like, this play was doomed from the start. There's no way. Maybe you call this on 3rd and 3, but not 3rd and 12, right?
It's like taking a line cook, trying to make him a head chef, is what you're saying. You're
Bingo.
basically
Yes.
making him just cook off a menu. He's never going to create a menu. He's never going to build around it. He's never going to fucking
well said.
evolve
That's a hell of an analogy.
Thank you.
Good. God damn.
Thank you.
Sam, that's
So
fucking
that
solid.
leads
Sammer analogy right there. Boom.
boom.
But
bang,
what
and
about
after that.
Jim Bob Cooter, right? I want to talk about
Yeah.
Jim Bob Cooter because
You
Stan
just like his name. You just like saying Jim Bob
Oh my
Cooter.
God. Listen, because tell me in what scenario, in what world, Scott, does Cooter not fix everything?
Yeah.
If you get a little bit of Cooter,
Honestly,
everything's better.
Tom
Honestly,
needs some cooter. If we're gonna be honest, Tom could use a little bit more cooter.
he's probably getting
Tom's
some
big
right
and
now.
ass needs some Cooter, bro.
Cooter, I thought, was a very underrated character too on Dukes of Hazzard. By the way, I thought that he
I
was
agree.
very, very
Cooter
good.
is underrated
good
in
role
general,
player.
Scott. Overall,
Mark
all
Cook
the
would have
time.
made the Cooter the Dukes of Hazzard Cooter reference immediately.
Oh,
Wait a
yeah,
minute.
I'm late on it. Cook
Sam-
would have been all over it.
In what world is Cooter underrated? Who the fuck are you hanging out with that underrates Cooter?
No matter how well and how well you appreciate Cooter, will always be underrated.
Basically, he's saying no matter how
It's
high you rate
amazing.
it,
It's always going to
underrated.
be amazing. It's always going to be
I mean,
underrated.
as Jerry
It,
Jones,
it never
in the glory
disappoints.
hole.
Is that what you're
It
saying?
never disappoints.
Never.
It will always be underrated.
Yeah. So Jaguars offensive coordinator. I have not done a deep enough dive on him yet. I've done more
You
research
haven't
today
done
on
a
Clint
deep enough
Kubiak.
dive on Cooter?
Correct. See, you saw what I was doing there.
We get
I
it.
love it, Scott. I fucking
Yeah.
love it.
Hey, bro, not all of us can do a deep enough dive. Sometimes you gotta work. The areas you
Stinks running those
it's-
shallow.
it's a
Stinks
work
running
in
those shallow
progress.
curl routes. He's all,
Yeah, yeah.
Stinks always short of the stick.
The shallow
What's
curl.
underrated is all the work you do on the surface level. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
The game plan.
So, Scott,
Yeah.
Yes.
you covered him for a while. Great player, great, position coach. From all we know, the last guy that got announced was Keenan McCardell. I love the offense he's coming out of with Minnesota.
Yeah.
He came from. I think that coach came from the Rams coaching tree.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I think Sammer made a great point, a great question on Twitter. He's like, I'm not trying to be a dick by no means, but like, has he ever called plays?
Yeah, that's
Can he
a
call
tough
plays?
sell. That's a tough sell. The thing too, though, is sometimes in these interviews,
They'll blow you away.
they'll blow you away, and sometimes you just want to know more about
the team.
a guy. For example, Keenan McCardell might become an offensive coordinator next year or 2 years from now, and he might be a head coaching candidate in 3 years. And Jason Light and Todd Bowles have had this exposure to him in the interview setting. I'll say this: after Keenan was done playing, I think his last team was Washington. I think his first coaching job, he was one of those former players that was just hired to be the wide receivers coach at the East-West Shrine game for one of the teams. And that game used to be here in St. Petersburg. And I remember going up to Keenan, we obviously covered him for a couple of years at Pewter Report. And just watching him on the field, and of course he's a receiver, but he was a natural. Like you could just tell he stood out like a sore thumb. There's certain assistant coaches, PJ Fleck,
But
Raheem Morris.
PJ Fleck
Yeah.
stood out like a fucking sore thumb.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This guy's awesome.
Yeah, and Keenan was kind of that way. Like he kind of has an it factor about him, and so I think this is just it may not be a real serious like, hey, you're a strong consideration. Maybe you come and blow us out of the water, right? But you don't start off by being an offensive coordinator in this league. You start off by being a quarterback's coach, a receivers coach, a line coach. You start somewhere, and then some team gives you a shot, and you either stink or you're really good. And I don't think Tom Brady would want to come back to a situation where Keenan McCardle's calling plays. So if he's the hire, you pretty much read the tea leaves on that one and say that Tom's moved on.
Well, if he's the hire, like, listen, Todd, and I love Todd.
That would be a hell of a gamble, man.
You're gonna roll the dice.
Hell of a gamble.
Like that's a hell of a roll, dude. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
But
put
you're
it on
also
red. No problem.
you're also rolling the dice on a guy that's going to learn on the job again. When we kind of did that already when we brought in Byron to begin with. So
fair
it feels
point.
like, why are you going to do that again? And like Latte said, you're going to put the possibility of you losing your job on a
Right.
risk like that. A guy who hasn't called plays, you don't know
Yeah.
what system he's actually bringing because he hasn't been in that system long enough
Yeah.
to really know
Hey,
what he's bringing.
I was looking at when I was doing the research on Clinton Kubiak today. I was looking. Gary Kubiak's only 61. I'm calling up that some bitch and saying, "Hey, dude, you're not too old."
Well, at
You know,
least
get
we
down-
know he can call dad. Like,
Didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he have a heart attack on the field though? Like,
Did he?
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think he's.
All right. Well, then
coaching
maybe
anymore,
he's
Scott. But
okay.
he was
maybe.
walking in the tunnel. He literally like fainted and had to rush him to the hospital. Like, I think
See, I've got such tunnel vision on the Buccaneers.
As
man.
it
I just
relates-
miss so much around the league.
As
Yeah.
it relates to Kubiak, obviously he's a run-heavy type of offense. That run scheme has worked forever. Any coaching
Yeah.
staff that's adapted it or come out of that tree is
Well,
awesome
he
at running the
described
ball. Right?
Rashad White monster year. What
Dude,
Scott
this is the Broncos who ran any running back for 1,000 yards. A Lindo Gary, a fucking
Right.
Mike Anderson, Terrell. No
Yeah.
matter who was back
Philip
there, it looked like-
Lindsay. Yeah. I
it
mean,
didn't matter. So
Yeah.
with that being said, I find it a little odd that Todd fired the people that he did, but he also didn't fire the offensive line coach. Don't those guys typically get hired by the OC? And if, say, Kubiak's the guy that they hire, would he not want to bring in his own guy who would know his
He
team
might.
and all
Yes,
that
he
kind of
might.
blocking and all that? So
If
that
you read
could be
if
another
you read
firing.
the Fab Five, you know that Scott said some.
I
of these
haven't
guys
had
still
time.
might- some of
Hasn't
these
had
guys
time.
still
Um,
might move because the OC might say, "I want my guys."
Well, that's what I was
Yes.
asking.
Yeah, that could be the case. Now, I've not heard anything definitive. I've asked some questions, like is Goody and and Joe Gilbert, are they locks to stay here? And I've not heard a definitive yes or no. Does it mean that
what about
That-
Keith Armstrong, Scott? How's
the
that guy?
special teams coordinator?
Yeah, how is he still here?
That's a good question. I don't know. I like Keith Armstrong as a person. I love his press conference. He's very thorough. He's very detailed. The results, in my opinion, have not been what you want from a special teams coordinator. So I would try to upgrade there. I'm with you on that. Now, again, with Goody and with Gilbert, we'll see. Sometimes you're right. The offensive coordinator does want to bring in his own offensive line coaches. And the reason is simple, because you have 11 players on offense. The majority of them are offensive linemen. You have 5 offensive linemen, right? And most you're going to have is 4 wide receivers. The most tight ends you're going to have is 3. The most running backs you're going to have on the field is 2. You're only going to have 1 quarterback. But you got 5 offensive linemen every single down. And so that's just a massive part of your offense. And it all starts up front, whether you're passing the ball or running it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they stay, if the new offensive coordinator says, yeah, I can work with these guys and whatever, or maybe he wants to demand that he bring in some of his own people. We'll see.
Scott, we have breaking news here in the chat from Lindsay. They have a little
Okay.
bit of insight. You know, we always say, if I could just be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Lindsay's that fly on the wall. Apparently,
Okay.
in the interview room, and it said Jason Light asked, "It's first down. What do you do?" Cooter. And Cooter's response was, "Play action pass." And Light said, "You're fucking hired."
Yeah, I could see that.
Bam.
Yeah.
Wow.
Scott, you had an article, I think last week, about who you think the Bucs should go after offensive coordinator wise. I don't think any of those guys have gotten interviews, so now I have to ask you, who do you want them to go with, considering who they've interviewed so far? I think they've already had 2 interviews with the Kubiak kid. So
Hey,
who do you want?
By the way, at least me and Scott were locked in step. I want Monken. Is that even still a possibility? Or have they even reached out? Do you know?
I don't know. As of this weekend, Todd had not heard from the Buccaneers, but I don't know since then. So now he might have. But here's the thing:
there's no tie between Bowles and him, so it's not like.
No, there's not. Well, there is a tie in that Todd Monken or Todd Bowles knows Todd Monken because Todd Bowles' son Troy is committed to Georgia.
Both first names Todd, also that's the thing. Yeah,
correct. So yeah, I mean,
Jason White was here when Todd was here too. So there's a
correct.
Tie. Todd fraternity, if you will. Go ahead.
Yes, and Todd Bowles knows Kirby Smart. He goes to Georgia for the pro days and stuff, so he's fully aware of who Todd Monken is. Look around the league, man. There's head coaches that have not been hired yet. There's offensive coordinators that have not been hired yet. This is a slow train in the league, and I think there's some musical chairs going on. I think that the head coaches. I mean, Frank Reich has interviewed for head coaching jobs. He's interviewed for offensive coordinator jobs. Sean Payton hasn't been hired yet. I mean, we're on a slow train right now. And so to me, I think this works to the Buccaneers' advantage because they're not having to grab the chair because the song ended.
Yeah.
The song's still playing and we're going, round and round. And I think it works to the Bucs' advantage. Why wouldn't you want to cast a wide net and interview as many people as you can before you make the decision on who you're going to hire? Maybe somebody blows you away.
I like it, Scott. I like it. You're right. Because, Bucs fans are a little desperate. You're right. Nothing's happened yet. Once that first domino does fall, though, then people are going to start scrambling because people got to fill coaching staffs.
Probably, yeah.
Nothing's happened. So, yeah, why rush into it?
It's going to start when the Pittsburgh Steelers hire Byron Leftwich as their new offensive coordinator.
I've actually seen some Steelers fans that have a thirst for him going back to Pittsburgh on Twitter to be the offensive coordinator to replace Matt Canada, who's not very popular up there. I'm like, careful what you wish for.
They want their line cook up there.
I guess so.
Stank, you want to join us?
Stank, are you sitting there? Are you watching my appearance on the Pat McAfee show while we're doing a show here?
He might be.
What you're doing?
I've asked several questions. I was enjoying the conversation.
Okay.
I was going to comment on how
I want to make a comment and say thank you guys for all the prep time.
Okay.
You had me on before the Pat McAfee show. I felt like I was prepared for Pat because I was on Loose Cannon. So I just want to thank you.
I don't think we didn't have that same conversation after the Pat McAfee show. We're like, we did that.
That's right. I'm giving you props. Absolutely.
Hey, I'm just saying, Sam Lee is a very connected man.
Thank you, Sammer. Thank you for reaching out to Pat and making that happen.
Listen, that offensive line question
had nothing to do with the story that I broke.
The OC question I just gave you about the O line. Okay.
Yeah.
That was from a conversation I was having with good friend of mine, AQ Shipley. Obviously, big guy in the show.
Look at the hoodie, bro. He's got the cutoff hoodie.
I just didn't want to drop the name. I didn't want to be that guy. I want to be, Stephen A. Smith with the. I was talking to. No, I'm not the guy. I'm not going to do that. I was going to say one other question. The 49ers story that came out today about the possibility of a third-round pick being compensation that the Niners would more than likely be offered for Trey Lance. All right. And my opinion is that he's going to end up sitting behind this kid again. Obviously, he's raw, but his career window is closing. His chance at a second contract is probably never going to happen now. He's going to have to do a prove-it type of deal, and it seems unfair to him, and I feel like eventually he's going to be like, hey, get me the fuck out of here. So he kind of has a little bit of leverage in that sense. Could that be a guy that the Bucs look at if Tom Brady, decides, hey, I'm done, I'm out of here, or he goes to another team, whatever the case may be, that they can pair up with a run game and a Kubiak or whoever the next OC is? There something where that discussion could happen?
Or, Scott, like this dipshit over here, Stank, and all his Gator buddies are saying, go get homeboy from Jacksonville, and Trask is pretty much Trevor Lawrence, right?
I had never said that.
Listen, Scott, that's what's circulating in Bucs Gator Twitter. Is that
I may have said hire Todd Monken and bring back James.
That Trask is the second coming of Trevor Lawrence, and if we get the guy from Jacksonville, Cooter or whatever his name is,
Right.
fix everything, and he's going to have a resurgence like Trevor Lawrence, or that if Tom Brady leaves.
Yeah,
Trey Lance or Trask.
I think Todd Bowles. Honestly, I think Todd Bowles would go after someone like Jacoby Brissett, and I'm not saying Trey Lance either, but young quarterbacks are coach killers, man. I mean, Todd Bowles experienced that with Sam Darnold up there. They just are, and so some of this is you want to win, but like you can't be a winning head coach when you're fired, right? There's some self-preservation that has to go on, and I just look at this franchise and the quarterbacks that I've seen get drafted here. And I walked in the door and Trent Dilfer was a first-round pick. He was already here. Then you had, Josh
King.
Freeman.
Sean King.
You had Chris Sims was a third-round pick. Sean King was a second-round pick.
Lennon.
Josh Freeman was a first-round pick. Lennon was a third-round pick. Jameis was a first-round pick. So it's not like these are Tim Rattay or not Tim Rattay, Brock Purdy, right? Like day 3 guys that they're trying. I mean, Bruce Gradkowski was another one, right? He was a day 3 guy.
The Polish pistol.
Like the Polish pistol, yeah. But
fucking hated that guy.
Josh Johnson was another guy, right? There has
I
not
like
been
Josh
one
Johnson.
single quarterback that was drafted by this team that has really done anything. If you look at the starting quarterbacks during the years where this team has won a division championship, and granted, Chris Sims kind of came in after Brian Griese got hurt in 2005, but Griese got him up to a decent start. It was Brad Johnson in 2002, and it was Brian Griese in 2005. It was Jeff Garcia in 2007, and then it was obviously Tom Brady in 2021, and of course the Super Bowl in 2020. So all I've known is veteran quarterbacks coming to this team and having success as opposed to drafted quarterbacks. And maybe there's a quarterback out there that breaks the curse and disrupts the myth or whatever, but I don't know, man.
Not going to be Trask.
It's not going to be Trask.
As a Bucs fan, I've seen it all already. I've got my Super Bowls. Go came here. I want to develop a quarterback. I need
It might not happen in our lifetime, though. It might happen in our children's or our grandchildren's lifetime.
You want it to happen because you're a Gator. Shut your face.
I don't care about Kyle Trask.
Hey, he literally told us earlier, Scott. He literally told us earlier. Listen,
let's
see how Scott feels about this. Ex-defensive coordinator, fucking great Hall of Famer, right, Scott? He just wants to hand Trask the job. We got to see.
I never said that.
Why the fuck would you hand him the job?
Yeah.
Why would you? He could have been.
Now,
well, all right. So to your point, Poppy, with regards to Trey Lance, if I'm Todd Bowles, an acceptable quarterback room post Tom Brady would be Jacoby Brissett, because he's not going to kill you. He's not going to wow you and win games, but he'll be a point guard that's not going to turn the ball over. He's a veteran that can provide some leadership. So you have him. And then you let Trey Lance and Kyle Trask duke it out for the number 2. You don't hand Trask the number 2.
Thank you.
And you see if any of those guys,
the light comes on.
Lance or Trask, if they have any type of potential or future, And I mean, there was a time when the Bucs brought in Josh Rosen, right? And he didn't pan out in Arizona or Tampa or anywhere. Where else did he go? Miami? Yeah, anywhere.
Miami.
So.
I mean, my thing was if Kubiak runs a very similar system, the Shanahan system that he's out there.
Yeah,
I could see a way where he's like, all right, he's kind of familiar with it already.
Yeah. From a skill set standpoint and a system standpoint, it makes sense.
Kyle was obsessed with him pre-draft. Bring that guy in here, let him duke it out.
Right.
It makes sense, but I was gonna also ask, why isn't a guy like Joe Brady getting an interview with the Bucs? Why, why are all these other? Yeah, I thought that guy kind of had an unfair shake with Carolina and Rule having to fire him just to kind of make an excuse there. And now he's been up there. He's seen Josh Allen development. He's in an awesome offense, in my opinion. Why isn't that guy on that radar? Because he's again running the similar system, and he's also called plays in the NFL.
I don't know. Like for example, Haley, right, has been on a staff with Bowles before, right? Todd Haley, and Todd Haley's he's a different cat.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just saying,
Speaking of cats,
right on
dog.
cue. There comes the dog. Wow. But I'm just saying, like he's a different cat, and so there's the football side of it, and then there's the person side of it. And I'm not making any disparagements against Joe Brady, but man, it's like you're going to fire somebody in the season when they don't even finish the first season as you know, as the OC. Like, oh, wow, something got to be wrong there, right? So I don't know. I don't know the full story behind Joe Brady, but don't know that there's got to be something there. You know, I mean, Matt Rule seems like kind of a good dude, above board dude, whatever. You know, it didn't work out, but for him to fire Joe Brady not even a year in, and also too, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Teddy Bridgewater also have some issues with Joe Brady?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Scott, we have you on here because you're supposed to know this shit.
I know the
Ask us the
Buccaneers. I
questions.
don't know the Carolina
Who's
Panthers.
the Buccaneers?
You know, yeah.
Scott,
Same.
I can't believe, and we kept telling fans, we've been kind of leading that chant, right? Enjoy this fucking ride. Enjoy it for as long as you can. Enjoy it.
Yes.
Because now I'm going to ask something in January.
Yeah.
That I haven't asked in a long time.
Right.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
I have to. Early prediction for the Bucs draft, because you guys always fucking nail it. I'm sure a mock draft's coming out soon. Give us a nugget. You got a nugget?
You have a mock draft coming out Saturday. Today is Wednesday.
Shit. Give us a nugget, Scott.
I don't even know. I'm trying to find out. The problem is, and I wrote this on Pewter Report on Wednesday morning. This morning.
I didn't know he was dropping this on Saturday, by the way, guys.
There's so many dominoes that have to fall, right? Because if Brady doesn't come back, quarterback's obviously the biggest need. If Levante David doesn't come back, linebacker, honestly, is a huge pressing need, because KJ Britt is a special teams guy. I don't think he has the athletic ability to be a starting caliber linebacker. You don't want him replacing Levante David.
And you said 45 is a lock. He'll be here. He'll be
here, yeah. Right, but I'm just saying, who's going to line up next to him? I mean, you need two linebackers in his defense. And this is a shit draft for linebackers. This is a bad draft for linebackers. There might not be a linebacker drafted in the first round. So this is not the year you want to replace Levante David. So does Levante David come back, right? Because the Bucs can't have him back at $12.5 million next year. They're going to point to, hey, look what Bobby Wagner got. He got $10 million. How about $10 million rather than $12.5? And they're probably going to even say, how about less than 10?
There's no state income tax. Come on, Levon.
Yeah, right. So if Levante David doesn't come back, linebacker is a huge hole to fill. Jamel Dean. I don't know how this team's going to afford to pay Jamel Dean just after the year that they paid Carlton Davis. I don't think this team can afford two cornerbacks totaling $30 million. So if Dean doesn't come back, are you going to re-sign Sean Murphy-Bunting to a one-year prove-it deal? Well, I don't think Sean's a starting caliber cornerback. Zion McCollum isn't either. So all of a sudden, starting cornerback is probably a first-round need for this team. 3 out of the 4 safeties are free agents: Keanu Neal, Logan Ryan, Mike Edwards. I think there's a chance Neal and Ryan maybe come back on one-year prove-it deals. I don't know about Edwards. We'll see. But right now it's Antoine Winfield and Nolan Turner are the only 2 safeties on this roster. This team almost drafted the Georgia safety last year in the first round. So he went to the Vikings instead. So safety could be up there, right? Donovan Smith, does this team trust him at age 30 in a contract year after coming off his worst season? The year before he had his best season. Which Donovan Smith are you going to get, right?
I don't envy your job right now.
Here's the thing. If you want to move on from Donovan Smith, you can save just under $10 million in salary cap room, which is going to help your salary cap. But you just created a massive hole at tackle, right? So what I'm saying is, who's the first round pick going to be? I don't know. This mock draft, this first one, is going to be just a complete dartboard, crapshoot, blindfold situation, because I don't know what the number 1 need is on this team, and neither do the Buccaneers right now. So we're going to put something out, and we're going to try to explain it away, but
we don't know. Not enough information yet.
Not enough information. This is not going to be like like 2019 when we had Devin White in 4 out of our 5 mocks, or 2015 we had Jameis in all 5, right? It's just going to be probably a different dude in all 5 of the mocks, and hopefully the last one in April before the draft is the most correct.
Scott, can we talk about Jamel Dean for a second?
Yeah.
And maybe I missed the explanation. I get that, before the game, he was questionable to play.
Yeah.
And then SMB started, but we saw Jamel Dean on the field.
Yeah, played special teams.
They're playing special teams. So was the reason he didn't play at all, was because of the injury, or they just
he was also sick the week before too. Remember, okay. Mike Evans missed a game because he was sick. So they did have an illness going through the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott came on here and said that they might ride the hot hand, and they did.
But Todd
that doesn't bode well for Dean then. If that was
the hot hand cooled off.
Yeah, if that was the decision, and they put Dean on the bench for that game because he did play some special teams reps.
Right.
That doesn't bode well for them resigning them.
He also had a pretty telling Instagram story, a little bit of a cryptic Instagram post about you don't know what you have, or you don't appreciate
it's
what
gone.
you
don't
have,
appreciate
or something like that. And then,
I just don't think that this team has the money or the cap room or the stomach to pay Jamel Dean. I mean, I think what they're going to do
they should.
Yeah, they're going to let him test free agency.
Yeah.
And maybe he comes back as a $15 million corner, and maybe there's always a surprise or two. Somebody hits free agency, and there's just no market there, and that happens from time to time. And maybe they say, "Yeah, we want you back at 8," and that's what we're willing to offer. And is that your best offer? Yeah, it is. Okay, come on back for 8. Not saying it's going to happen, but the same thing with the draft. You have these guys that declare for the draft, and they have some agent saying, "Man, you're probably 3rd or 4th round pick," and they go undrafted.
Ouch.
It just happens sometimes, and it's unfortunate for them, but that's just how it is.
I personally cannot stomach seeing Levante David lead this organization.
I could not either.
I couldn't either. It's
Levante and Mike Evans need to retire as Buccaneers.
Absolutely.
I agree. Those two for sure. And I hope it coincides with their decision rather than like what happened to Derek Brooks, where the Bucs cut Derek Brooks, right?
So bad.
And then he didn't have any offers because he was done. He was shot. It was over for him. But they cut him, and I think I would have liked for them to convince Derek to retire rather than cut him. But Derek still thought he could play, and it just didn't happen. And he ended up not playing for another team, right? At least Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, those are 2 guys that were Buccaneer lifers the whole way. Yep. And you'd like to see that for Levante and also for Mike Evans.
Scott.
Quick question, Scott. Oh.
Go ahead, Lance.
Pelagic Computer said in the comments that we also need to start thinking about Winfield, having to resign Winfield and Wirfs.
And Wirfs, yeah, for sure.
Wirfs,
and White, those 3 guys.
Have you heard any not okay, let me rephrase, because it's not all about, what you've heard, and I don't want to have you use your sources all the time, but can Wirfs move the left tackle? He can. I think the feeling is he's an A right tackle. Do you want to take the chance that he goes to the left side and is a B, and then your replacement for Tristan Wirfs on the right side might be a C, and you've really kind of degraded your line a little bit. So that's why sometimes offensive line coaches don't like to shuffle the line, right? Because it's like, all right, we're going to take our guard and move him to center because our center's out, and then we're going to bring in this guy. And it's like, sometimes it's like you're better off keeping your A player where he's an A player and then rolling with the C rather than taking the A and making him a B and then injecting a C, because you end up with a C either way. So I think Sammer had a great point, because if you move the left, you got to pay left tackle money too.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, but you know what? In this day and age, so many good pass rushers are on the left-hand side anyways, going up against right tackles, that you really need to have a good left and right tackle in this league. You really do at this point in time, because it used to be you had the finesse guy, the Simeon Rice, your pass rusher, rushing from the blind side of the quarterback. That was kind of the big thing. Then you'd have like your bigger, stronger but not quicker defensive end. Think,
Golston,
Cam Jordan,
Golston.
Will go. Yeah.
How about the
kind
crane? The crane, Greg Spires.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, Greg Spires. That's how it used to be back in the day. Now you're seeing You're seeing Joey Bosa on the left side, right? You're seeing Nick Bosa on the left side. You've got a lot of sweat in Washington, right? Opposite
the Browns, they got fucking
Chase
Garrett on
Young.
one side and Clowney on the other. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when it comes time to negotiation, if he's a great left tackle, his guy's gonna be like, all these top 3 left tackles are getting this much, as opposed to all these top 3 right tackles are getting this much.
It will probably cost an extra million or two per year. Yeah, it's a little bit of a pay hike there for sure. But there is something to be said about the blind side of a quarterback, though, right? That's where the strip sacks come from. Is usually the blind side as opposed to the front side. So we'll see.
So that kind of leads into my next question. I think maybe it might be the last question.
Right, last question.
Yeah, I was going to say, Scott, what Patriots offensive lineman will Jason Light send a bag of potato chips for this offseason, coming down to Tampa and be a starter for us here?
Question.
That's a great question. I don't know. But it's happened before a couple times, right? With Logan Mankins and Shaq Mason.
Need a third time. Let's go.
Yeah,
bag of chips. Send it up.
Yeah, it might happen. I don't know. It'll be interesting because I would like to see Ryan Jensen come back healthy and just become Ryan Jensen again, right, at the center position. It's so much fun to watch. He's the tone setter up front. Thought Robert Hainsey played well. He played credible, not incredible, but credible football in his first year under the gun, having to play that position. And I thought he did an okay job, but they missed the fire. They missed the attitude. They missed Big Red up front. And I think that really, and I went up to Tristan probably halfway through the season. And I said, you're the captain now in the offensive line. He's like, no, I'm not. Like, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow. He's like, yeah, the coaches have been trying to tell me, like I got to kind of step up and be a leader. And you kind of sense this reluctancy on Tristan. And I just had a conversation with him, and I'm like, you need to be that guy. Like, it's time. This is your offensive line. You're the best player with the best credentials. You're going to be the highest paid player on this offense soon, like your next contract. You're going to be here longer than any of these other guys. You are the cornerstone on the offense right now. You, like Mike Evans was the cornerstone. The next cornerstone is going to be Tristan Wirfs, as far as like the decade-long Buccaneer. And I think at the end of the season, you kind of heard Tristan in some interviews say, my offensive line, and I'm like, good. Like that's what you have to think. This is my offensive line. And even if Ryan Jensen comes back, next year, and he's the fire starter and he's the center, so that's kind of a natural kind of leadership vocal position. It doesn't hurt to have more than one guy, right? It doesn't hurt to have more than one guy. I remember, this guy named Warren Sapp, at one level, and Derek Brooks at another level, and John Lynch at another level at defense. Yeah, Rondé was always the reluctant leader. Rondé was like the hype man. Rondé was, Rondé told me he hated wearing the C on his chest, but he was like the last man standing, right? After Lynch left and Sapp left and Brooks left, Rondé's like, shit, dude, like it's me.
He was like Will Smith and Fresh Prince, like in the empty house. Damn,
he would much rather be the lieutenant to Sapp or Brooks or Lynch, the field general on defense. He'd rather be
like he had to play with Savvy Piscatelli. That's sad. I feel bad for Rondé.
Holy shit.
Well said. Yeah.
Remember Jermaine Phillips?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I like Jermaine.
Flip.
I like Jermaine.
Flip. Yeah, I'll eat Jermaine.
Didn't he break his forearm like 3 different times during
something like that? Yeah.
Who was the corner that
Stop
Dominic
tackling
drafted
with
that they refused to give up on? He had dreads as well. He was horrible, and they just kept trotting him out.
Myron Lewis.
Myron Lewis, dude.
No. The longer dreads. He wore number 21. That dude was here for literally no reason. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, Jerron Bolden.
Oh, God. He was here for
Jerron
no
Bolden.
reason.
Yeah, there's some really good cornerbacks in Tampa. There's some really bad ones, too. Like, remember Allen's. Yeah, well, he was a good special teams player. Alan Zamitis from Penn State.
Wow, Zamitis.
Yeah.
He was horrible, and I was so excited. It was bad.
Yeah.
Hey, so does he get in, Scott? Does he get in? Does
Rondé? God, I hope so. He deserves it, man. He really does.
Scott.
He deserves it.
He's going against Darrell Revis, man.
Scott. Two different players. Two completely different players.
He doesn't get in.
He needs to be presented by the right person. That's why.
We're going to fucking take pitchforks to wherever the fuck that building is that has the people who decide who's presenting these guys. Like, it's enough. You should be the dude presenting these guys. It's time.
I would get him in. I'm telling you, I would.
No,
I
you're
would-
not
I would get
going to
him in.
leak you're not going to leak your mock draft here on the show.
It's
But-
not done yet. I don't.
All right. Well, can you tell me,
Yeah.
is it Anthony Richardson or not?
No. All right. Thanks
No.
for coming
Oh my
on,
God.
Scott.
Absolutely not.
Hey, thanks for tuning in,
Absolutely
guys.
not.
Thanks for coming on.
tuning in.
This
No.
dipshit wants 2 Gator quarterbacks that can't play,
Bring 'em
battling
in.
it out, dude.
Jesus.
Come on.
It's horrible.
If
I'm just
Trask
gonna-
was
I'm-
the guy, Scott would have told us at one point in one of these camps, hey,
Yeah.
Kyle Trask had an amazing day out
Had a
there.
great camp.
Right.
Never
No.
happened.
He has some
He-
good days, right? Right,
All
Scott?
right, Stank. Here's my scouting report on Anthony Richardson and why he's not going to be drafted by the Buccaneers.
Okay, I'm ready.
Inaccurate.
Boom.
Boom.
Mic
Game
drop.
over.
Inaccurate. It just
Game over.
he's inaccurate. He does not have NFL level accuracy. He's a project, and this is not the team right now with Todd Bowles.
Nobody in the chat.
Could he be Jalen Hurts?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Jalen's
Hurts.
like the
Hey,
leader.
Hurts' struggles in his first year it was accuracy in the NFL, and
Yeah, but he was accurate as hell at Oklahoma.
Yeah,
He was.
That's a very
a
quarterback friendly system. But
he was
still.
a dude in college, man. That guy was in the
Yeah.
fucking
Oh, yeah,
Heisman
Alabama,
discussion.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Guy won games that mattered in the SEC, by the way.
Yes.
Unlike, what do they call it?
He beat
AR-15?
Utah. I mean, come on. He beat
Oh.
Utah.
There you go. All right,
I
Scott.
read Anthony Richardson's going to be the next Josh Allen. So as soon as I saw
He might be
that-
the next Josh Freeman, in my opinion. Just to bring it full circle.
Not even gonna show.
Boom.
Not
But I
even,
also
not
saw
even gonna
some-
show up to his own camp, dude. You
That's
want a guy
wild.
like that down here?
That's what a pro looks. You saw what Scott did. He brought it all full circle. Great show, guys.
Trying to make us more professional.
Fantastic.
I appreciate it. Scott, thank you so much for coming
Always
on.
a pleasure.
I don't know why I have you plug what you do. I feel like people should know you, but just in case there's some Patriots fans
Just
that don't know
in
who you
case.
are,
Lots
and
of
they're
Patriots fans, yeah.
still hanging around somehow. I don't know
Rarely,
why.
Right.
Let them know.
There's still a chance. There's still a chance Tom comes back. Scott, you think he comes back? That's the last one from me.
I
Yes or no?
I still believe that this would be the best destination for Tom Brady. I'm not Tom Brady. I'm not making his call for him, but I would be hard
Oh no,
pressed
you
to
did
find a
make
better
the call for
situation.
him when you looked him in his eyes and you said, "Listen, Tom,
I don't think
you
you're
need to
done.
come
No,
back."
I shared my opinion with him,
I don't know,
and he
like more than that.
And
yeah.
after you sold me on Kubiak, this Kubiak kid, I mean, that might be the hey. By the way, I love to run the ball, Tom. You're gonna throw the ball 13 times. We're gonna win a game here. Come on,
Wait, guys. By the way, and
I like
we really
it.
got to get off. We really got to get out of here because Scott's got to get here too. But we totally missed one, guys. Like Scott, wait a minute. You said you shook his hand.
I already said I
Brady?
was
Yeah.
screaming. Did you wash your fucking hand?
You touched this
Yeah.
man. What's his essence like? What does he have like a?
Wait, what's
aura?
Tom smell like?
What's he smell like, bro? What's
Well,
that?
he
like?
just showered. He smelled terrific.
God.
No, he
Does he
actually
use-
didn't.
Yeah.
He actually
Is it
didn't shower.
dreamy? Is it dreamy? Do
no,
you
actually, I think he did shower.
Do you
No.
lose yourself in his eyes?
That's right. I forgot he didn't shower on the flight back from San Francisco.
Right.
For San Francisco, yeah, that
Yeah.
was shitty. But
Yeah,
Scott-
because
Scott-
I mean they stunk, so why not?
Scott, do you like? Is it easy to lose yourself in his eyes? Like it's just.
I'm a seasoned professional. I'm entering year 28. I'm just telling you, it's like Tom Brady is different, man. When you're talking to Tom one-on-one, whether it's even the press conference, we talked about this last time I was on, the Medusa stare, right? Where like it just, yeah, like nobody else is in there, just you and Tom, right? And Tom's just locked eyes with you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when
Turns you to
probably walked out of the stadium with them for all of about, was that a 4-minute walk, I guess? And yeah, there's an aura there. There's a presence. There's no doubt. It's iconic. It's different. It's just a different type of celebrity. It's
Your
just
skin,
a different.
your skin looks better, Scott. Everything you just
I
look.
think
you look
that's
a little
what
slimmer.
it is, man. I think that
There's
might
like
be
an
what it
aura
is,
about
yeah.
you now.
You look like
Yeah.
you went to a
Totally.
spa.
Look, that's the
you
first thing
sang-
I said when he came on. You look fantastic.
You
And I
did
think you
TV
probably
12.
did the-
Your hair
First
looks
time.
great.
Yeah, you've
Well,
got-
I will say this. I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to now, just because it's loose cannons. The thing is I actually caught a cold Monday night, and I shook his hand, and the first thing that I thought of was like, oh crap, I hope I don't get Tom sick.
Or maybe he got used to it.
But you got used to it.
Yeah.
No, I started feeling sick in the press box.
Shit.
And there's other writers too. Bailey was up in the press box. He caught a cold too. There's a lot of people that caught a cold Monday night. We had the it was chilly, man. It was like 40 degrees that night.
was
So
chilly.
it was
It was
You know,
nice.
us Floridians, that's cold. So
I already put that,
Tom
I already
doesn't
put
get-
that day out of my mind.
Tom doesn't
Yeah.
get sick though. He hydrates too much.
Nah.
Avocado ice
I was
cream.
gonna say- I was gonna say-
yeah.
You came on here and you got a little bit more of a butt chin going on. Something happened when
Really?
you shook his hand,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah, the chat right now, Dave Rubin said Scott has great hair. Like everybody's going
Yes.
off on how good you
I'm
are.
Appreciate
telling
that.
You
That
got,
was
you got the
great.
butt chin. You got the Tom Brady jaw. Something's going on.
Skin's
Whatever it is.
glowing.
Yeah, maybe
My wife's
he
got to
tr-
be in the chat. Maybe
He
she's
transferred the TB12 through his fucking essence to you when you touched it.
Yeah.
That's what- Or he
Maybe.
did the opposite and sucked your soul out, and now he's gonna live forever.
I've actually lost some weight since Monday night too, so maybe Tom is just helping me get more of like a sleeker physique. I don't
Go-
know.
Feel
He's
more
not
pliable.
human, so
Feel
you
more
can't
pliable and
put-
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go test your avocado level stat because you'll find the
Yeah.
elevated.
I've actually slept great too, so it's just working wonders.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here, guys. Head the
All right,
fucking
guys.
You have like
Appreciate
an
it.
unquenchable thirst
Thank
for
you.
water. Go Bucks.
And beer.
and beer.
Thank you, Scott.